Today, I'm happy to welcome Michelle Cable, President and owner of Panache, a booking agency based in New York City with offices in San Francisco. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Michelle, what does a booking agent do?
Well, a booking agent is the person who curates and organizes all of a band's live shows, whether it be a 2-week-long tour to a 12-week-long tour, a festival appearance, or a local show in their hometown, or an international appearance. And we also will organize a band for support tours where they'd be direct support for a larger band. And so we pretty much are the behind-the-scenes person who puts a band in front of an audience.
And how did you get started in the business? And is this something that you've wanted to do all your life?
Not at all. I didn't even want to work in the music industry when I first started. I was a writer, and I was really bored in the town I grew up in, which was a very small town called Eureka, California. And out of boredom, I started a fanzine, and I interviewed a lot of artists and musicians at different shows. And so I was going out every night, and I met a plethora of people from all over the world, and that grew into me promoting events in the town I lived in. And when I moved to San Francisco, I knew so many people across the country where people asked me if I'd kind of connect the dots and build tours for them. And it wasn't until I met a Japanese band called DMBQ that things really took off. South by Southwest approached us about wanting to showcase them at their festival, and I got a few other artists I work with on the festival. And after that, things really, really grew. I met someone at the festival who worked there who asked if they could work with me because they really believed in what I was doing. And within, a year or two, he also moved to New York and started working as an agent for me. And then I took on a couple new agents, one in San Francisco and one in New York, where I had moved. And before I knew it, I had 4 people working for me, plus an assistant and a bunch of interns. And our roster grew to about 150 artists.
150. And what kind of music, can you describe it?
It really varies. We work with a lot of experimental musicians, a lot of indie rock bands, a lot of garage, a lot of noise. We work with the blues artists, a lot of DJs. And it varies because every agent has a different taste, and each agent kind of has his own roster. And so he might pick or choose who he works with, and so we reach different audiences that way. And so it varies, and it's growing and becoming more and more eclectic as we work with more and more different types of people and promoters.
And talking about blowing up, what is the right point in a band's career to start contacting people like you? And what are you looking for in a new band?
Well, it really varies. I mean, I only work with artists that I really, really respect musically and who I also respect as people. And I've been approached by bands in various ways. I mean, by labels and managers to approach me about working with them, or an artist will come to me directly. A lot of it is word of mouth, personal recommendation from people I work with in the music industry. But I'm always looking for a band that, would like to tour a lot and wants to perform live a lot, because that's obviously what I work with. A band that has a label helps, and a band that has a publicist helps, but I work with a lot of bands that don't have those things if I really believe in them. But having those things in place really definitely, gives a band more of a structure and the foundation to push what they're doing further. I also really like a band that has maybe toured once on their own and they kind of know what goes into the booking aspect of things, so that way they have a better understanding of what I'm doing for them, and they have more realistic expectations of the natural progression of what they're doing.
Tell us about promoters and how you work with them.
One thing as a booking agent that I find really important is to make sure the promoter's actually doing the job. And so I'll stay in touch with them, make sure they're putting up the posters, they're sending out, press releases, and I'll kind of, oversee everything to make sure that they're doing everything to put the band I work with in front of the largest amount of people possible.
Well, let's take a look at your website. First of all, tell us the name of the site.
It's panacherock.com, and the booking agency is called Panache Booking.
What role does your website play in your business?
Well, it's a place where people can go and they can see all the artists we work with. All 150 or so of them are on there, and they can see all the tour dates, and they can see who to contact for promotional services like the publicist or the label if they need posters. There's high resolution photos that they can download so that they can have those for promotional needs. I also have a section called blogs where bands can write about their tours, and I have it so that it can be a little more fun and interactive for musicians to kind of capture what goes on day to day in their life. And then we also have an avail section, which is when the band is actually available to perform out. they might be available for festivals or to tour in the fall of 2010 or 2011. And it's kind of like ultimately what they're able to do in the upcoming year. And then so someone can go to the website and be like, okay, I like this band and I want to book them. But then they might actually see another band that they really like too and want to book them. And we have a lot of interactive stuff on the site with videos and MP3s that people can watch to give them more of a feel of the band's live show. And we try to have it be as involved and in-depth as possible.
Are there any other sections of your website that you'd like people to take note of?
I think I mentioned all of them. I mean, I think a lot of times people don't, totally scroll through and look at the blogs, and that's something that is being updated more and more, and it gives you more of a personal feel of like what the band's actually doing besides, releasing a record and performing at so-and-so club.
I know you travel a lot, but do you book gigs outside of the United States?
Yeah, I actually do, and a lot of booking agencies in the States are doing this more and more, where I help bands go to Canada for one, and Mexico, and I've brought bands to Australia. I'm bringing bands to Brazil in 2010. I booked a soul DJ in Israel, and I brought a couple bands to Japan. And through what I'm doing, I've met so many people all over the world, and it's really, it's something that people get really enthusiastic when they know that they can actually go outside of the United States and take what they're doing. And I help bands connect with European agents too that might be better fitted. But one thing I found is that even if I'm bringing a band overseas, it's really good to have someone overseas also, helping with the booking process, because they know their culture and their city best.
Are there any special challenges involved in booking gigs outside the U.S.?
Well, there's work permits that need to be done, and some countries require a tourist visa. Like to go to Brazil, now you have to get a tourist visa for 5 years, which is pretty easy to do. In Canada, you need to generally have a work permit or an exemption letter. There's tax waivers that need to be filed, and then you also have to, the language barrier, of course, is tough, and you also have to deal with maybe the different ways people work with time-wise. Like in Brazil, people aren't used to booking things 8 months in advance. You kind of have to work with them 3 months in advance or 4 months in advance. And in Japan, it's good to have someone who speaks the language over there who can negotiate details, because even people over there are confused at how the money is broken down and stuff. And so it's just generally helpful to have someone overseeing everything.
You recently visited Israel with one of your bands. Tell us something about that band, your experience in Israel, and maybe we can watch some of their music.
The band I work with is Monotonics, and they're from Tel Aviv, and they're a band that I've been working with for the last 3 years that have really, really grown rapidly. They went from playing basements to 30 kids to selling out 500 to 600 capacities, within a couple of years of touring. And they've, dedicated their lives to touring. They toured 10 months out of the year. And I had the luxury of going to Israel and seeing them perform over there. They opened up for Faith No More, and it was amazing. But they don't play there very often, because you can really only play once or twice there, and you access enough people that way. And there's so many restrictions in clubs over there too, where there's so many limitations to what they can do, that they don't really enjoy playing over there, because they're a band that you saw them.
They're pretty colorful.
Yeah, they pour trash over the audience, and they bring the drum kit, onto the floor, and they have people interact with it and play the cymbals while they're moving around. They used to light their cymbals on fire. They don't do that anymore.
Well, let's see an example of it now. Finally, Michelle, what's on the horizon for Panache?
Well, it's going to be an exciting year. We are going to move offices, and I hope to have a couple new agents in 2010, which means that we'll ultimately be adding more artists, because there's so many artists that approach me every day that I love, but right now everyone's hands are pretty full. And so in 2010, we're probably going to expand the roster, and a lot of the bands are going to be doing showcases next year. We're going to have 2 more South by Southwest showcases, and last year both of them were sold out, and we're going to have about 45 artists playing South by Southwest this year. And a lot of the bands are going to be doing more and more festival appearances, large and small, and I see a lot of growth with all of our artists that are going to be touring and active next year, and I'm excited about it.
Well, Michelle Cable from Panache, thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you, Steve.